Long before a farmer gets to plant his first tree, John Kavanagh has been hard at work preparing the seeds that are the first step in any forest enterprise.
We would be looking at ordering the seed for what's for sale this year, for example. We would have been ordering that seed back in 2018 and trying to secure that seed back in 2018. Then when we get the seed, we sow it the following spring, and it's grown on for 3 years in cycle, and then it's lifted for sale.
John is the nursery manager at the Ballymurn site of None So Hardy.
Nursery is about just over 200 acres here on this site. We've another nursery just south of Kavanagh, the Wicklow Wexford border, of about 300 acres. Overall, we have capacity to produce between 20 and 25 million trees. Kind of about roughly between 30 and 40% of that would be broadleaves, so 5 to 6 million broadleaves, and the rest would be conifers.
He studied forestry in UCD, and a week after graduation in 1990, he started working at None So Hardy, at a time when afforestation was in the very early stages in Ireland.
The Western Package was the original forestry programme. When that started, there was really no nursery culture in Ireland, and at that time a lot of trees were imported by the likes of None So Hardy to get trees in for the afforestation programme, and the nursery business more or less started around that time along with the rest. So the nursery culture has developed over the last 30 years. We've built up friendships over the years with other nurseries right across Europe and in the UK, and we learn off each other. And that's how it has evolved. We learn, a lot of what we do here is very similar to tillage farming. So the lads here would all come from kind of tillage backgrounds.
Successful tree improvement programs have been developed in the UK and Ireland, where seed is selected from quality trees with the aim of focusing on desirable features, for example, producing high-value timber or good form from the parent tree.
The seed that's been used now is from seed orchards that have been established from those materials, and they're grown for better vigour, better finer branching, and better timber qualities in general. That's what they look for in those tree breeding programs. So pretty much we've been supplying kind of improved material for the last 10 years.
So we're inside in a polytunnel, and we're surrounded by birch trees that are in pots. Can you tell us what this program is here and the seed that you're collecting in here?
Well, this orchard is the first commercial orchard that's come from the Teagasc tree breeding program, and it was common birch was the species that was being used because it's the main birch species planted in Ireland. They selected clones from what they call plus trees or superior trees that had good straight, finer branching and good straight growth form, and were growing reasonably faster compared to other trees. So they selected clones from those, and over years they narrowed it down to a certain number of clones. These clones have been grafted and planted here since 2016. The polytunnel, the reason they use polytunnel is that it's an enclosed environment, so there's no external pollen can come in. Because it's an enclosed environment, you can control it, you get better growth. You can use an irrigation system with fertilizer that's distributed through the irrigation system, and they use the fertilizers kind of used for promoting flowering, which will promote seed growth, which is what we're looking for basically. So during the year, you're back with pests and diseases and stuff like that, and then towards the end of the year, around July, August, when the seed starts to ripen, a guy comes in with a ladder, a couple of guys come in with a ladder and buckets and just collect the seed by hand. It's then dried, and then we send it to be cleaned and treated, and then we get the seed back the following March, April, and we sow the seed, and that starts our normal production, which would be for birch would be a 2-year cycle.
Nursery work from seed collection to preparation to planting and then lifting to sorting of the trees for delivery is labour-intensive work.
This is our grading shed. So during the lifting season, the trees are lifted in the field and they're put into boxes that have liners in them. And as they've been brought in, the liners are closed over to keep the roots from drying out. The trees are brought in, and then they're graded. They're either stored ready for grading, or they're graded by people here. They're sorted into different sizes, or if for likes of oak, you might do a certain amount of pruning on them. They're bagged into various sizes, and then they're labelled and they're got ready for dispatch or for sending up to cold store.
The trees arriving for planting will have a label on the bag that can be used to trace the seed right back to its source.
For us, there's an identity number, so we know exactly where that has come from what batch or whatever. Then it'll have the species, like this label here is oak. It'll have the size, this 60 centimeters plus. It'll have the age. There it says the 1U1, which is basically a 2-year-old plant. How many trees are in the bag? It's 100 in the bag. But also, there's what's called the provenance detail. So you'll have your mass, a certain number, which refers back to the seed cert, which will refer right back to the day that seed was collected from the tree or the individual seed orchard, whatever that was collected from. So this is seed that we collected ourselves. It would have been collected back in 2017. So it would have been collected in autumn 2017. It would have been stored and then stratified by us, then grown for 2 years, and then now it's ready for sale. And like you have things on like a plant passport, which is a kind of an EU requirement. You have to have their plant passport on it, and everything basically that's on the seed cert will be referred to on this label. So it's traceable right from the time in 2017 when we collected it in Coolatin. It's right to now, right to when it goes to the site. The likes of hawthorn, when you collect the berries, obviously you have to get the flesh off the berries. Then the seed has to be put into what they call a worm treatment. What a worm treatment is that they're put into a pit mixed with sand and peat, and they're put in a pit outside. It's not warm as such, it's done, say, early summer, so they have the whole summer in a pit. And then at the end of that summer, they're taken out of the pit and they're put into cold storage over winter. And the idea of what you're doing there is you're mimicking nature. So when the seed falls off the tree, it's on the ground, it gets a warm treatment on the ground, and then it gets a winter and it comes up the following spring. But it comes up nature is designed that the seed comes up over a number of years. But what happens with us, what we're trying to do is get as much of the seed germinating at the same time. And that's why we have to kind of give it that special treatment in the pit and then in the fridge. So in the fridge, you're trying to get the seed to split in hawthorn, and like say hazelnut, you're trying to get them to split so that the seedling can emerge more or less all at the same time.
John has been developing contacts with seed collectors around the country who will collect seed from registered stands and then sell that seed on to none so hardy. Some of the seed is sent away for processing, but they have started doing some processing on site.
Some of it we sent over to a company called Forestry in the UK to have the experience of dealing with these minor species, and they're not that far away, but it's just they have the experience. Some of the seed is treated by the National Seed Centre in Ballintemple, Quilcha, and some of the seed we treat ourselves. We have a limited seed treatment capacity here, but we do some of the species here, and it seems to work well. We've learned how to deal with various species, so we get reasonably good results from the bit we do.
Government targets for afforestation are falling way behind in the last number of years, due mainly to issues around licensing. But if they want to plant 8,000 hectares per annum, that requires producing 18.5 million plants. None so hardy currently produce around 19 million, but could up their game to 25 million if required. At the moment, a lot of trees are going to the Scottish market.
We grow trees first and foremost for the Irish market. That's what we have been doing for the last 30 odd years. We were fortunate that when the afforestation programme in particular was collapsing in Ireland due to lack of licensing, there was an uptake in planting in Scotland. Ironically, it was the McKinnon report over there sorted their afforestation programme out, where unfortunately it hasn't had the same effect here. But the broadleaves, all the broadleaves we're growing, they're still being grown mainly for the Irish market or Northern Ireland. But for the likes of our Sitka, surplus Sitka is going to Scotland. But like first and foremost, we have to aim for the Irish afforestation programme, because if we get our paperwork in order and if we get our act together and we start looking at planting 8,000 hectares, if the likes of Nunso Hardy or Quilter Nurseries or whoever is growing trees don't have the trees in the ground for the previous 3 years, well then there is no planting programme.
While John thinks that we've a good mix of species in our woodlands, he also feels that some species are being left to one side when they could offer a lot to our young developing forests.
We should be planting a wider range of species, but we can't. There's no one has time to actually put work into. The work has been done. There's over the years there's been the likes of Western Red Cedar, and these species have been grown, but there's no one planting them now because they haven't the time. They have to. The hamster wheel. They're on it. They just can't stop. They have to keep going, keep going. They have to look at getting a site done, getting a site passed, and on to the next. And unfortunately, that's the situation we're in. And we're not putting enough effort into looking at what species should we be planting. The likes of Teagasc have done quite a good bit of work over the years with the likes of the birch programme, and they've been developing, say, an alder tree breeding program, and they've done the sycamore tree breeding program. Like the sycamore tree breeding program, we have an orchard, and that's going to start coming on stream over the next few years. And you'd like to think that, you know, people will start using the sycamore a bit more and start availing of this improved, you know, what we hope will be improved. There is trials going in at the moment, and we will give us a shop window to see what exactly these trees will do. And that's what we need to be looking at. What trees are going well, in what sorts of sites, what sort of mixtures are going well, what does well for, you know, even like continuous cover forestry, what goes well there. Things like we should be doing more of things like riparian woodlands or along riverbanks for helping stabilising riverbanks and using that as continuous cover forestry. But even in areas like where they're prone to flooding, it has been shown that trees help absorb water. They're not going to stop floods, but they will help slow down the flow of water.
None So Hardy currently employ 85 people over their whole operation, producing 19 million trees per annum, and they are still evolving their operations. This is ground zero for our future forests, and John is meticulous in his planning and forward thinking. And as we grow our forestry culture, this kind of attention to detail needs to happen at all levels, especially when a forester is ordering trees.
It takes a bit more planning,
Yeah.
and the likes of these species are species that were, you know, if you're growing them in area in fields that are a bit damper than others, it takes you like to lift them when the conditions are right. You know?
Conditions are right.
Yeah. So it's just kind of the planning around it needs to kind of needs to be kind of a two-way conversation. You know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's not Tesco.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah, it's not Tesco. Yeah, you're right there.